Okay, so what we're looking at here today is the Exelon 2-bay hard drive dock. Now this is using USB 3.1. So it's using the latest USB, which actually gets it up to, I think, 10 gigabits ideal, transfer rate. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are gonna depend on how you can get faster transfer, but this one is spec'd out to be USB 3.1. It also has a new Type C USB. So it's very much updated, but unlike the other docks out there, this one has some additional hardware features that let you configure your drives in different ways. So you could do a RAID 0 or RAID 1, a span, a JBOD, which is really cool because you can kind of use this drive dock for a lot of different things, whether you're just trying to get more performance out of your drive. If you're using it as a scratch disk or you're doing some editing from it, you're going to get more performance by using like a RAID 0. Or if you're just archiving footage, and a lot of guys will mirror data across two drives. And so in this drive dock here, you can set that up as a RAID 1. So it will take your drive and just mirror the data over. Or you can just use it as a hard drive dock where you have two hard drives, where you could have drive A or drive B, or you could use span, which basically is the same as JBOD, but you're just taking both drives and it shows it as one drive. No performance enhancements there like RAID 0, but it shows it as just one drive. Anyways, we're going to dive in. I'm going to show you how to set it up, which is very simple. It's just one button, and we can actually go through most of the setups fairly quickly. So let me show that to you right now. All right, so again, for those of you who don't have Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt's preferred, but if you don't have Thunderbolt, this is a drive that's using the latest USB 3.1 spec. So that's going to be faster than USB 3, which is twice as fast. You can see it's using the Type C back here. Now don't worry if your computer doesn't have Type C, because it gives you two cables, and I'll show you that in a second. You can see the hardware switches here. You basically choose the dip switch that you want, RAID 0, 1, JBOD, span, and then you hit this set button for like 10 seconds and it initializes your disks. So let's get this set up. So here's your power adapter. You definitely need some power to this dock. Now here you have a Type USB-C to USB-C cable. We're not going to use this one. So here I'm using the USB-C to basic USB here, which my laptop has. Now USB-C doesn't really matter which way you plug it in, it just plugs in. There's no up or down. Alright, there you go. We have our hard drive set up over here. Now we just need to throw in some drives. Now you see the cutout over here. This is if you want to run 2.5-inch drives. So for instance, I have these solid state drives over here. I could throw these in. Just like that. And if we turn this on, let's see what mode we're in right now. So we're in JBOD. Turn on. Now JBOD, if you don't know, it just stands for just a bunch of disks. So anyways, you're gonna see here we have two drives that pop up on my laptop. So there are two drives here. Now what I can do is I can change these very quickly. So let's say we wanted to do a RAID 0. Now RAID 0 is going to give us more performance on our drives. What RAID 0 does is when you're writing data to the hard drives, it uses both drives. Now the drawback to this is that there's no redundancy. So as it's writing files, it's going to split the bus speed between both hard drive, so it's writing back and forth, and that makes it faster instead of just dumping all the data to one, which is going to max out on the hard drive. By using RAID 0, you're dumping it to both at the same time. It's kind of splitting the files in a way, so you'll see what happens. So what I did was I just hit the dip switches to RAID 0, and I'm going to hit the set button here and hold it down for a few seconds. Now you'll notice that it's ejected my disks here, and now it's asking me to initialize my disks. So I'm going to hit initialize, or I could ignore this. I'm just going to ignore this for now. If I go into my utilities and we go to our disk utility, you see that it shows it as one drive. Now that's what RAID 0 does. So here I could create my partition and I can say RAID 0. And I'm going to erase this. And we're done. We have a RAID 0 drive set up right over here. Now, as you do this, obviously you want to make sure you don't have any data on your disks. You don't want to pop in your disk with data and start messing with the configurations. But here we have it. So if I want to create a new folder, this is already on one drive. Now remember, even though you have two drives, it sees it as one because it's writing back and forth to both, and that's going to give you more performance. Now, if we wanted to change this to, say, a RAID 1, let's drop down this dip switch here, pop this one back up, and then we hold this set button. So we just hold the set button here. You notice it ejected my disks again, and it's asking me to initialize it. Again, I'm going to ignore these messages. I'm just going to go right to my utility. And you'll see that it shows it as one drive with only 120 gig capacity. Now, if you know what RAID 1 is, it's mirroring the drives. So as it saves data to one, it's going to have the same data on the other one. Now, this is not for performance reason, it's more for redundancy and archiving. In case one of your drives fail, you'll always have a backup of your data on the other drive. Again, this doesn't increase performance, but it will increase redundancy. So if you have some, very sensitive footage from a client, you don't want to lose it, that's how you would archive. You would set it up as a RAID 1. So the thing about RAID 1 though is, let's say you had a 1 terabyte drive and a 1 terabyte drive, you would use 1 terabyte of data because it's going to be mirroring. Now, if you had a 1 terabyte drive and a 2 terabyte drive, well, RAID 1 can only use the lowest capacity. So if you had a 2 terabyte drive, it would only see it as a 1 terabyte because it's going to mirror the data on this other drive, right? So it's better that both your drives are the exact same because you're not really benefiting by one being larger than the other. And that's for RAID 1. So you see, we are not using the maximum capacity because of redundancy here. Now, another thing we could do is, because I believe this is a 240 gig drive and this is I think about a 120 or so. Let's change this to span, right? Okay, so we'll change this to span. So we hold this down, and as you can see, it's going to eject my disk. It's going to reinitialize, but we'll do it right here through the disk management. Now, I'm not sure if you see this, but now our capacity is 360 gigabytes. So it's in span, what it's doing is it's taking both drives and it's totaling up the available space. But span is very similar to JBOD, but span sees multiple drives as one drive. Now that's great if, let's see here, let's initialize this. Let's call this span. All right, so with span, you see I have one drive here, and that's great when you just have like a bunch of files. You're not trying to figure out, oh, I'm going to save it to drive A, or I'm going to save it to drive B. If you just want to throw it in one drive, there you go. It's really two drives, but it shows it as one drive. Now, again, span is very similar to JBOD, but we'll switch back to JBOD. Hit our dip switches, hold this set button down. You'll notice it's ejecting my disk. And we have two drives here, right? So we have 120 gig and a 240. I'm going to initialize both. I'm going to say drive A on this one. And I'm going to say drive B on this one. There you go. So you notice now on my desktop here, I have two drive icons. And again, this is very similar to span. You're using your maximum amount of storage, but you separate your drive. So you have literally drive A, drive B. This probably would be good if you're sharing your computer with family and you say, hey, my wife is using drive A and all of my stuff is on drive B. You can see physically two separate hard drives here. So that's what JBOD would be. Span would be the same capacity, but one drive. Raid 0 would be one drive, but you would get increased performance, no redundancy. Raid 1 is mirroring, where you have a backup of basically the drive is going to be exactly the same, but you're not going to get maximum storage because it's only going to use the maximum storage from one drive. So if this was, and this is a great example actually, one of these is 240 and the other one is 120. If I did a RAID 1, I would only get a total of 120 gigabytes. So I'm losing a lot of space on the larger drive. So again, make sure your drives are very similar. And as you set this up, make sure your drives are bare and just kind of start over. You don't want to toggle between the different, configurations once your drives are set up. But, once you know what you want to do, it's very easy to set up with this Exelon 2-bay hard drive dock. I'm going to eject this really quickly, eject my drives. We'll throw in another 2. So we'll power this off. Now remember, these drives here, we set it up as JBOD. Let's pop in some big drives. Now I like hard drive docks like this because when you're buying bare drives, it's a lot cheaper than buying the ones that are already in an enclosure and come with a power adapter. These, you just buy your bare drives and you put your data on here and then file it away and mount it back up when you need to access that data. Anyways, let's turn this on here. Now we have JBOD set up on these disks here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up as something different. So we're going to go in and I'm going to go to RAID. Let's do RAID 1. It's a great example of guys who want to archive something and then pop it out and then go back to normal disks. So we're going to hit set. All right, so we've ejected our drives. Now remember, in a RAID 1, we're only seeing one drive and only the max amount of capacity off of one drive. These drives here are 2 terabytes each, but I'm only getting a total of 2 terabytes of storage in RAID 1. But it's okay because we're getting redundancy. Now, there you go. We have RAID 1 set up on our drive here. So if we wanted to copy these screenshots, we copy it there. It will duplicate across both drives in case one of them fails, and it will still be okay. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to eject this. I'm going to power this down. I'll pull our drives out. Let's pop these solid states back in. You'll notice right away our last configuration here was set up as a RAID 1, but these drives here are set up as JBOD, so it shows up as 2 drives again. So let's power this off and let's go back to our RAID 1. So let me eject these disks. And the reason I'm showing you this is because depending on the project you're working on, maybe you just need external storage. You can pop those drives in as their external storage. Or maybe you're working on a very sensitive client project where you need redundancy. You can put in the drives that are your RAID setup for redundancy. So turn this back on. Or maybe you're editing video and you need performance from your drives. You could set up another set of drives as RAID0. I know a lot of guys who use external hard drives because you're working either on a MacBook or an iMac and you need the extra storage. So this is a great solution for a single dock where you can change your hard drive configurations. Now, you may think, why don't I just get a bunch of docks and connect it to my computer? And then one could be for RAID 1 and one could be for RAID 0. Well, the reason why I wouldn't do that is because I notice my applications tend to slow down when I have too many drives connected to my computer. Because every time you open up an application, it's kind of looking and loading all the different external drives that you have. So for me, it's better if I just work with one kind of external hard drive or the least amount possible so that my apps aren't, indexing all of these different drives. So I noticed that I get better performance working with one. So anyways, this one right here can be set up for RAID 0 for performance when you're editing, RAID 1 when you're working with client projects that have to be archived and need some redundancy, or it could just be JBOD, so you could split up your 2 disks separately for you and somebody else to, or you could just select span and just make one giant hard drive if you want. So really, really cool. Again, this is USB 3.1, which is the latest top speed for USB. And it works on just about anything, even if you don't have Thunderbolt. So as you can see here, we're back. We have RAID 1 set up again. No problem here. So we're toggling between RAID 1 and JBOD. We can do this all day. Anyways, just thought I'd show you this to you guys because this is one of the coolest USB hard drive docks out there for under $100. Again, USB-C, but it comes with the adapter to normal USB, so it works on just about anything. And these are all backwards compatible, by the way, so it'll work on USB 2.0, 3.0, 3.1, whatever. And very simple to set up. Once you have your bare drives in here, just select the option you want and hold the set button. It will go through the steps of initializing the disks, and you're set up. Just make sure you label everything properly so hey, this is my RAID 1 set, this is my RAID 0 set, this is my span set or my JBOD set, whatever you guys want. Anyways, I could ramble on all day, but if you want more information about this stuff, I'll have a link below this video. I will also have a link on the website, cheesycam.com.